There's the sunrise. We're camping. This is a movable feast because I used the tablecloth for camp. And overnight, lots of cool stuff from the woods has accumulated on the mat. So I'm gonna have a seat here. I'm really glad you guys decided to come today. It's an absolutely gorgeous day and seemed like a really good time to share a practice with you in the forest. So have a seat, something under you, ideally. Could be your legs. It could be a pillow. It could be a block. It could be a rolled up blanket. It could be a dog. I generally start out with crossed legs, Padmasana, but actually I'm going to switch to the other side because what will happen is that my bones will settle in an unfamiliar way to my seat, which means that in my case, that left hip is going to come down a little bit more. Enough on anatomy for that. Just wanted you to have some kind of a seat. Your legs could be arranged in any way you wish to. But if you're crossing legs, try to switch your legs from the thing that you normally do. And so typically what we do is we simply start by checking in with ourselves. We get ourselves an amazing parking spot to sit for a moment. Sometimes I close eyes. Sometimes I'll just set a gaze, a little pinpoint gaze on something in front of me. And then the first thing I'd like to do is make sure that we're sitting as tall as we possibly can. So that's a body check. And as I send awareness to my seat, I realize that one sit bone is a little more anchored than the other. So I'm going to shift that the tiniest bit. And then between those sits bones is the beginning, the bottom end of the spine, right? And so the bottom end of the spine with the little tailbone, I'm going to let it go behind me and forward a few times, a few pelvic tilts. Until I end up setting the hips in such a way that the spine ascends off of that nice little grounded point so that the top of the head, the crown, Sahasrara, is reaching really high up into the sky. Lovely. So in order for that to happen, of course, we need some engagement around the core. And so I like the idea of imagining the spine as a stem or a tree, nice and tall and straight. But inside of our bodies, we've got layers and layers of musculature, from the inside all the way out. So when we talk about core, it isn't really just about the spine and the muscles on the outside of your body. It's literally got a whole bunch of support layers of musculature around that spine. So if your eyes are closed, you could kind of imagine those layers engaging and supporting a nice tall spine. And so when we sit in this way, there's a lot more room for breath. Right. And then, so we're tall and we're feeling the sensations of the air and the space around us. And then for me, there's an experience of a breeze. And so I'm going to let my breath start to do a little dance with the breeze. For our purposes on the mat here, we like to make sure that the nose is the major intake and outload of breath for the nasal passages to be the main way that we breathe. So to start, we'll breathe in and out of the nose as deeply as possible. And while I'm doing that, every now and then throughout the practice, I'm going to touch in with how aligned is my spine, how much effort and ease are meeting up with each other in this perfect balance. In this case, I'm noticing how heavy my arms are and slightly drawn back by the shoulder blades to send the heart forward. And then I'm going to drop my gaze back onto that little pinpoint place called a drishti. And I was thinking about contentment as a theme for our practice today. In the path of yoga, it's a kind of a code that we have with ourselves to find contentment, santosha. the prettiest Sanskrit word in my view, santosha. So as you sit and you meet up with body and you meet up with breath, could you let that sound of the word santosha color and add a quality to your experience in the breath and in the body? Might become a bit of a mantra for you. Beautiful. Continue to breathe, sit brightly, and receive the bounty of the experience in each moment. So in large part, contentment is about being aware of each moment that you're in and setting up an alert system when you realize that you're trying to rush forward. Yeah. And get back into this breath in this moment. Lovely. Okay then. So now that we've arrived, I thought that it would be nice to start with some postures on the earth, on the ground, on the floor, or wherever you happen to be. I'm going to keep the support under my bottom and extend my legs out kind of wide. So we're not looking for an extreme range here. We're just looking for kind of an A shape, almost like when we're in wide leg forward fold. It's just that we're now seated. And so for those of you who have a little bit of restrictions and kind of a little bit of tightness in the backs of the legs, you could support just simply by bending the knees. You could even put some blocks there. But honestly, why not just bend your knees and flex your toes up, just as if you were standing on the floor, yeah? Nice. So this is slightly different than what we usually do, but what I'll have you do is you breathe your arms overhead. Could you notice the shoulder blades down behind you and slightly gathered together? Could you notice the pinky fingers sent toward each other and the thumbs out? Beautiful. So I'm sitting nice and tall, best I can. And I'm going to exhale my hands down. And I'm just going to breathe them back up again. So breathe back up. Nice. I'm going to lace up those fingers and find Temple Mudra. And again, slide the blades down, but the fingertips up and the sits bones down and the breath up and the santosha up, right? Send my gaze over to the left, and my right hand is going to make it to the outside of that left leg. And my left arm is going to come behind and set a little kickstand behind me. And I'm still pretending like I'm standing on my legs. So there's some energy in the legs. There's a big breath in, and as you out breath, you start to send the gaze, the drishti, to the back of the space. So we start out with some spinal twisting. We like to address 6 major twists, movements of the spine as we meet up with the mat. And then an exhalation back to center. Go ahead and fly those arms back up. And it's a kind of an interesting point. We'll visit with the other side. This time right hand comes behind and the left arm comes to the outside of the right thigh. But in speaking about movements of the spine, we could be in a yoga practice all day long simply by noticing the way that we use the spine mindfully all day long. Okay? And then in-breath all the way back up. And then maybe contentment shows up there because you realize you're paying attention to how you're using your body and taking care of yourself. Alrighty. So now I'm going to walk my hands between the legs, almost like that wide leg forward fold, except that we're on the floor. If you need to place blocks under your hands here, or perhaps blocks under your elbows, please do so. I didn't bring any to camp, but that's okay. So I'm going to breathe really tall, as long in the spine as I can, bend the knees as much as I wish to, flex those toes up, start to really light up those legs. And as I exhale, this is just a really slow drift forward. Feeling pretty nice and enlivening at the backs of the legs, the spine. For some, the body can find, the forearms onto the earth. For others, it's going to be fairly tall situation. It's all good. So a little bit like we did earlier, sitting up, we're going to turn side to side. So I'm going to first drift my gaze over to the left. And I like to point out, always send your gaze before your body parts so you know where you're headed. It's just like driving your car. You're going to gaze first, okay, there's where I'm headed. And then moving the left arm out and the right arm out and take a little spin in this direction. Could be, you could go beyond that leg, maybe not. So while I'm doing this, I'm making sure I'm pressing the right hip a little bit extra to the earth. And then drifting my gaze on the breath all the way behind me. It's just a slightly different way for a side-to-side twist. Very nice. And then eventually I'm going to drift it back to a point where my heart is kind of pointing in the direction of my toes, and then just surrender into a forward fold. Again, blocks under hands, blocks under elbows, stay up here. Find the shape that your body wants, not the one necessarily that you're seeing in front of you here. Cool. And so this seems like a really obvious place to then just walk back to center. And then I'm going to press the fingertips to the earth to send myself back up to a nice tall spine. And why not just breathe those arms right overhead and listen to the cute little woodpeckers on the trees. I love this. Oh, it's actually squirrels having a little altercation. Okay. So this time the gaze goes over to the right, and you know what's coming. We're going to frame that foot and start to maybe walk the fingertips all the way over to the right, sending the gaze at the same time. This time the left hip bone sits a little bit extra down to the earth to create a really strong foundation for that spin of the spine. I like the illustration of a DNA spin. Very cool. And then an exhalation, we'll drift back, frame that foot, the right foot with your hands, start to send your heart in that direction. And as you in-breath really deeply, maybe a nice big bend in that knee, just go ahead and surrender forward. And in the background is running Santosha, 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 contentment, contentment, yeah? A lot of times the postures, the asana, feels provocative and challenging. And so that's when we like to really just give it the best that we can. Let this shape find you. You don't have to find it. It's going to be different in every body. And be really happy and content with what you have. All right. And then why not just drift around all the way back to center? Again, it's like a wide leg forward fold when we're standing. Just going to tip it forward. So now the spine is forward and back in its movement. We did to side, and we're going to get to lateral in a moment. But gravity calls here. So again, the word contentment, Santosha. How can I find a measure of okayness in this moment, even if it feels like I wish for something else than what is happening right now? We all do it. Cool. So fingertips, really handy. Press those into the floor, the mat, or the earth, or whatever it is that you're on. And one more time, let's breathe those arms overhead. Nice. Exhale, come on down to the heart. Come home for a moment. And again, thanks again for joining me here today. Breathe, move, shine. Alrighty. So why not butterfly pose, seated butterfly pose. Gorgeous. And so blocks come in really handy here for many bodies on the outside of the thighs to support the weight of the legs. Personally, if I had my blocks, I'd have them in place here, because what I love is the way the blocks or the prop supports the weight of the leg, telling the inner thighs it's okay to let go. When we let the legs drift out, just kind of heavy, it's great, except that's sometimes when the body goes into a response of alert, right? And it kind of pulls back from it. So if it's possible for you to support the outside of the thighs, it's a great idea. If not, just let it be. Again, sit nice and tall. And this is where we're going to find our lateral spinal movements, just a little bit different, okay? So as I press the right hip down and the left hand to the earth beside me, I'm going to reach the right arm nice and tall and start to guide my fingertips over to the left. And why not send that drishti now up into the trees? Or perhaps maybe down to the floor. Or perhaps you're feeling, I'm going to just move that neck all over the place to find some mobility in cervical spine, the upper spine. All right, again, whatever hand is upstairs, the other hip is pressing into the earth. So there's a trajectory off the earth to the fingertips. High fingers. Then I'm going to use the downstairs hand to press me back up to neutral. Go ahead and temple mudra overhead. Reach nice and tall. Find space between the vertebra and the breath in the spine. And we'll find the opposite side this time, all right? So I'm going to set the right hand down here, the left hip a little extra, and the left arm reaches up, and I'm pressing away, away, away from this hip. And again, really nice idea to let the gaze come up and down. Again, finding some mobility, not only now at the low spine, but in your neck. So in your mind's eye, you kind of see this gorgeous arc of spine, tailbone down, and the top of the head pointing in the opposite direction. And then come on back up. Nice. Let's in-breath those arms overhead again, and we're going to get up really soon. Welcome yourself to yoga. Just take a moment, quiet, close your eyes. Nice. Okay, let's travel ourselves by pressing those knees together first. I'd like you to walk your feet as close into your bottom as possible. And those of you who come to my classes know that I like to throw in MJ exclusives. All right, this is toothpaste asana. You're going to take your hands and press. Your arms are going to be in use to press those legs as close into the spine as possible. And you're going to squeeze from the bottom to the top. That's why it's like toothpaste tube, okay? Press from the bottom to the top. See, I might start out like this, but then as I start to engage, press all around the spine and the core all the way to the top of the head, and use the arms and breathe very deeply now. Maybe start now to engage Ujjayi breath, a slight constriction at the back of the throat, creating your own ocean sound. So I'm squeezing from the bottom, and that includes the pelvic floor is pressing up. Then the palate of the diaphragm is pressing up, and the palate in the throat and the palate under your brain is pressing up away from the earth on the breath. Lovely. So we start to enliven the body and feed some oxygen to the cells of the body through the breath. And then we're going to drift ourselves right into a table shape and start with cat-cow. All right. The cow's udders down towards the earth, the gaze really high, the tailbone very high. And still, even here, guys, there's engagement at the pelvic floor. Pretty much for the whole class. And an exhalation, the gaze comes down and goes all the way to the back of the mat. And then on the in-breath, we come on back up. I hear an ultralight overhead. Yeah. And then exhale, exhale into the cat shape. In-breath, one more time, up we come. So check it out, a little bit something different here. Exhale into the cow shape. Convenient place to send your gaze to your toes. Curl those toes under. You can barely see the feet because your knees are hip distant wide and the feet are hip distant wide too. And make a little mental note of what hip distant wide feet kind of actually look like. All right, so I'm in my cat shape, and then I'm going to start to lift the knees from the floor. I keep my gaze behind me to lengthen the back of the neck. I start to really engage the press of wide fingered hands to the earth, almost able to slip a piece of paper under the wrists, so not to press into the wrists too much. And there's the core. You can't cheat here. There's the core, yeah. Exhalation. All I'm going to do is send the hips back and lengthen the arms at the shoulder hinge, and then start to straighten the legs for down face. Feeling pretty tasty. Length at the back of the neck, a teeny bend in the knees. The tailbone is neutral. The navel center is snapping back toward the spine. The shoulder blades are sliding down and around. The arms are long, triceps quite busy. Wide fingers. And a nice, lovely, long gaze to the back end of your mat, maybe and beyond. So from here, all I'm going to do is raise up on the breath, the right leg, and see what I can do about finding a nice long trajectory again. I love that word. From the fingertips to the toe tips that are upstairs.
And as I exhale, I'm going to go ahead and bring that leg back down. And maybe I'm just going to step the feet, like I call these elephant steps, side to side to re-neutralize the hips. Safety places the right foot and floats the left leg high. So a nice pointy toe and a nice strong arms, nice long trajectory. Exhale, floats that leg back down. This time as we float the right leg up, you've all seen this before, yeah? Exhale, there's that elbow and knee action. I'm gonna stay here for a second. Okay, and then waiting for the in-breath to send me back up. Exhale, returns the right leg. So we're just warming up, yeah? All right, left leg up this time. My gaze is roughly right below my head. It's an exhalation, snapping that navel center back in that places slightly elbow to knee, and hang out for a breath. Use the in-breath to come back up. And exhale, returns the leg down. Okay, we are headed now. So in-breath, right leg nice and high. Exhale, step it through. Let's go ahead and place that left knee to the floor and climb on up. Maybe reach the arms overhead. The option is for hands to the hips. The other option is to back the hips up a little bit. For me, for my money, I like to sink the hips as far forward as I can and scissor the legs together so that everything is sucking into the center line of the body kind of all the time. So we'll find another one of those spinal twists by exhaling the hands down here. Get my gaze to the right, set it up, float elbow to knee. And now lately, a lot of times, guys, I've been using fist on fist. It actually increases the range of the twist because there's a little more space to get to here. The other thing is too, if you wouldn't mind, try to get that elbow down and then see if you might be able to send your gaze to the back of the neck. So now what's happening is from your tailbone all the way to the top of your head is this gorgeous spin. How you doing so far? Okay, nice. So the breath is the thing that brings me back up. And the exhalation, I'm going to frame the foot. I'm going to come off that back knee and see if I can sneak this leg back. Pop myself right into down face dog again. Nice. Let's breathe and get those heels way off the earth, maybe to the toe tips. And then exhale, press. Almost like there's a little tennis ball under your heels. And then come on back up. And come on back down. This time the breath raises up the left leg. And an exhalation, we're going to get that through. And the right knee comes down. And this is the part where I think I'll take this off. Beautiful. Again, the choice is for hips to be backed up or the choice is for hips to drift forward. For me, I love the sensation of lengthening the front of the hip flexors. It's counter to our device-friendly bodies, right? And then up with the arms if you like. For me, I've got a little extra press on this back foot that helps to stabilize me. And again, I'm scissoring the legs toward each other, planing the hips parallel to the front of the mat. Yummy. Exhale, reframes the front foot. Come off the back knee. See if I can sneak that leg back. And you could have a vinyasa flow here if you love to. You could come right into down face dog. It's your choice. And exhale eventually to child's pose ever so briefly. So from your child's pose, if you happen to have, pretend this is a block handy, I'm going to place those blocks under my elbows for the child's pose and increase the mobility in the shoulders, yeah? And then as I'm here, I'm going to just slip the hips side to side. So with any kind of luck, we're getting a little bit of grease into the hip areas, the connective tissue, tendons in the hip sockets for the rest of our practice. Cool. Move those blocks out of the way. Always keep your blocks handy, by the way, guys. I think you already know that. The blocks serve as high heels for your hands in case your hands can't quite get to the earth. Curl the toes under and press yourself right into Adho Mukha Svanasana, down face dog. My gaze to the back of the mat, my neck nice and long, my core nice and strong, arms very strong, shoulder blades down behind me, slight bend in the knees, neutralize that tailbone. And what that means, my friends, is I'd love not to see maybe almost like a plank pose or really slopey low back. I want to be careful with that. So I got to get myself to the front of my campsite, my mat, my movable feast. So for me, I'm going to raise up the right leg and just hop the right leg through, maybe briefly a little warrior 3, and exhale, returns the left leg. So I'm going to step up wide here from this point and start to face you. So for me, my right leg's coming out and I'm stepping nice and wide here with his wide legs again. Hands to hips, please. All right, really securing those feet to the earth. Just a quick note on feet. The outer edges of the feet are sealed. The toes are kind of soft. The toe mounds pressed down. The arch is lifted best you can. Both sides. Let's go ahead and breathe those arms overhead. And exhale your hands to your heart. Okay. So I thought this might be a nice format to find our lunges side to side. For now, we'll start with a starfish shape. And I'm going to steer my right toes to point to the end of the mat. So I've got this perfect setup for warrior 2 to show up. All right, so all that means is start to bend the right knee. And as I'm bending this knee, the left foot is pressing a little more to the earth, engaging the inner thigh. Sets me up in this really strong base shape from which to find side angle. So it's elbow to knee, and the upstairs arm is reaching overhead. Perhaps the gaze to the sky, perhaps the gaze to the earth. It's a really cool idea to try to make actually a circle with your gaze to test out the stability of your shape. This might be an MJ exclusive. But it's kind of fun. It's like, oh, okay. I see what I need here to stabilize this shape. I'm going to send my gaze to my left hand and then just come up back into a warrior 2. Smile. And reverse that warrior. Lovely. So this time there's a little more emphasis on the press of the front foot. Okay, and then I'm just going to straighten that leg and come back to face you. We'll take a brief forward fold on an in-breath. Send the heart up, and on the out-breath, surrender down. Halfway lift. Spin your gaze and your left arm high. Hello, trees. Exhale down. And we'll visit the other side. Nice. Exhale back to center. Reconnect those feet to the earth, please. A slight bend in the knees, hands to hips. Lengthen the spine here, guys. My top of my head is reaching towards you, the tail behind. Pretty vigorously. Bend the knees to come up. And this time the left toes are going to point to the end of the mat. And then I'll just place a nice big deep bend there. A little extra press on that back foot. So it's the front side of this leg is engaged and the back side here. See if you could even feel those muscles working. All right, warrior 2. And we're going to come up to exalt and exhale for side angle Parsvakonasana. So there is, with any kind of luck, a bit of a stacking of elbows and knees and hips, so that if you can look high, you know that your shoulder isn't dropping, right? So we like that shoulder to be kind of high, best you can, that's all. And maybe not rely too much on this. Rely more on the core. So there's this nice long chunk of strong from the back foot all the way to the top of the head. And then we'll reverse that again. Nice. And then we'll exhale back to center. Hands wide, Suction cup those feet to the earth, slight bend in the knees. Snap that navel center back, a little bit of a tailbone tip down. Nice, you guys. Hands to the hips. This time we're going to go to warrior two. To the left side. We're going to exalt. From here is where we straighten the left leg. So the breath is going to slip us into triangle pose. Hello, triangle. Nice place to play with arm placements. Great place for a block under the right hand, if you like. But again, I love the idea. Here's the line from here, here, all the way up. Used to be I would find triangle pose way down here. And I think that's okay, but it doesn't really mean that I'm being strong, long and strong here. That's all. It's the breath that ascends me back up. And then I'll have those feet go straight. And then I'll switch to the other side. First in warrior two. And then exalt. And I like to straighten the leg here. Not a tight lock, just a little bit of a loose connection in that knee. And then the breath is the thing that sends me into triangle pose on this side, as usual. Let's see if we can test out that circle drishti here. Awesome. So there's a gas pedal in the front foot here. Pressing down on that to come back up. Recentralize the feet, reach those arms overhead. Exhale your hands to your heart. Beautiful. Just for a moment, can you close your eyes? Can you put your thumbs into the sternum and press into that bone a little bit? Can you notice the fingertips touching and the palms, a little bit of a space between the palms and some energy in the arms? Can you notice the shoulder blades sliding down and together to broaden the heart space? And can you go back into that breath? Nice. Okay. So an in-breath sends your eyes open and arms overhead again. And we're going to come into goddess, everybody's favorite. So what you want to do is adjust your feet to a width that allows for the knees to be kind of stacking over the ankles. So get your feet in just the right place. You will start tall and then sink into it. So it's a bit of a pranayama that we're going to experience here of breath and movement. I have the exhale on the down and the in-breath reaching up. It kind of makes sense to me. But really just move your breath. And can you float your toes off the earth as you do this, but really enliven the glutes and the hamstrings behind you. Can you soften the jawline and the shoulders, but reach the arms really strong away from center of body? Can you move the breath even more dynamically and land into the shape, lace up fingers overhead? And we're going to stick the goddess here, okay? So pelvic floor, okay? All the palates lifting, the breath oxygenating the body, and a sense of the thighs are very active. All right, I'm going to stay right here, but just let my arms float down to my thighs. All righty? So I'm going to send the hips back. Press the hands into the thighs, the inner knees. Press those legs back best I can to send a nice long spine parallel to the floor. And then I'm going to in-breath here, and as I exhale, the left shoulder is going to make it towards the right knee. I bet you any money I can get my gaze to the sky here. And then in-breath so slow to center. This can feel a little bit wobbly, so you really want to secure the feet to the earth, always, always, in all of our shapes and all day long. Now for me, this really does elicit santosha. Feels pretty tasty on the spine. Lovely. Come on back to center. And then we'll come on up. And we'll come back to heart space. So we're going to find warrior two again to the right side. And we're actually going to come off the back heel, creating crescent warrior. Okay, guys? So the back heel's high this time, and we're facing that back end of the mat. The arms will come up again, and we're going to find that little spin again. This time, my gaze goes over to the right, so you're catching me on the back side, and the gaze to the back of the mat. And I'm scissoring the legs together. I want you to notice there's this, but then there's that. All right, come on back to center. Exhale, frame that foot. Take a little spin around Skandasana side to side a few times. Side lunge. Okay, back to center. Toes in, heels press, hands to hips. Breathe it up. Okay, check out the other side this time. So it's an interesting transition from warrior two to crescent warrior. You have to really do some fun stuff with the feet, but reach it nice and tall. And it's the out breath that spins me over to the left this time. However your hands like to be. Could you drop that top elbow a bit? Gaze to the back of the mat. Send the left hip back and the right hip forward. And then come on back up. Exhale, Skandasana again, side to side. Hello, thighs. So I don't see why you wouldn't just go kind of wild with the arms here. Yeah. Really nice spinal flex. And then slowing it down until we end up back at the center of the mat. Continue to bend the knees deeply, and yes, thighs. Soften the toes, soften your face, your jawline, deepen the breath. And send whatever energy you can to the legs, to the core, to eventually come back to center. Toes in, heels out. Halfway lifting. Really strong on those fingers, pressing to the earth. And I'm trying to drag the earth toward me to lengthen the spine. Gaze right between the hands. Nice. There goes my toes all clenchy. Gonna soften those right out. One hand to a hip, another hand to a hip, send your hips back. So we will come into a forward fold here ultimately. Just for a moment. For me, the gaze is all the way, miles away. But for you, it might be somewhere more like this. Then I'm going to move the heels in toward each other and slowly come on up. Well, you know, we're surrounded by a bunch of trees. So I think it's time to make a tree. So I'm going to bend the knees and hop to center. Do a little bounce. Okay. And then re-centralize myself on the mat, on the earth, through the feet, strong legs, lifting up. So these guys, they've got roots, okay? I'm gonna do the same thing. Wide toes, send the roots through, fire up those legs, little bit of a tailbone tipping, okay? Snap that core back. Nice strong tree trunk, all right? Tree trunk leans into one side. Gonna let you pick. Set your gaze up again, all right? Nice wide arms. And then exhale, lift whatever knee you feel like lifting up. Doesn't matter. Okay. Classically, what we do is externally rotate that leg. And I like to say suction cup the foot to that tree trunk. Setting my gaze and my breath to a focal point that provides stability. And here might arrive Santosha. Maybe this is a cypress tree. Maybe it's windy. So it's okay to get the stabilizer muscles of the ankles and the feet to work for you. And then the branches are going to do whatever they do. And then you're going to breathe that leg back forward. An option here is to find figure 4 of the legs. And then bend into it a little bit. Dropping the gaze. Just for a moment. And then we'll come back up. This is optional. And return that foot down. Okay, shake it off. Other side. Whatever your other side is. For me, it's going to be the right leg. Place everything, all those roots down into the left foot. Fire that leg up. Exhale, lift the right leg this time. External rotation. Already I have a gaze point and breath happening. Suction cup foot could be here, you know, could be down here. No reason for it to be way up high. We'd like to avoid the knee is the thing. Alrighty, and there's our beautiful breeze. Yeah, I think this time I'm a weeping willow, except I'm not weeping because I have Santosha. Which is kind of an interesting topic because sometimes all ranges of emotion present with contentment. Ultimately, weeping willow. Okay. For me, I'm going to place hands to hips and I'm going to see if I can find that figure 4 shape. Yeah. And maybe just take a little dip in. All kinds of ranges here. I've seen people go all the way down. Then I'm going to exhale, press myself back out, and return that foot down and take a little jump. Please step to one end of your mat. Please in-breath those arms overhead. Exhale forward. Whatever leg is closest to me, send that leg back. Okay, and we are going to come back up into Crescent Warrior because it just feels like the right thing. Exhale your hands to your heart. Frame that front foot. Sneak this leg back. So I'm going to show you one version of Chaturanga. And on the other side, I'll show you the other version. So for me, I like to exhale nice and slow for the down face and keep my feet pointed behind me to really lengthen the fronts of the feet. At first, this feels kind of very unfamiliar, but then we'll flip the legs back over. Nice. Alrighty. So the leg farthest from me raises up, bring it back forward, and here's maybe that halfway lift, all the way tall, and exhale back home. I'm going to step to the opposite side of the mat. You can stay where you are if you like. Exhale, forward fold. And the leg closest to me slides all the way back for crescent. Nice. The breath is the thing that rises me up. And again, exhale. Find that spin. Come on back up. Exhale, find this is the other version of Chaturanga, which keeps the knees fairly straight. In breath here. Big high gaze. Exhale, exhale. Down face. Okay. The back leg rises up. Come on through to the lunge. And maybe briefly warrior 3. Meeting at the end of your mat. Forward fold, please. Okay. I wonder if it's possible for you to make a little waterfall of spine from the top of the hips to the top of the head. Just releasing that spine really heavily to the earth. Top of the head kind of reaching towards the earth. Bend the knees as much as you can, want to, wish to. Keep the knees as bent as you can. And find Utkatasana, awkward pose, fierce pose, lightning pose. So with any kind of luck, we're not sending the spine this way. And with any kind of luck, we're not too arched in the low back. Like to find that neutral spine if it's possible. And then sink the hips down as much as you can. I like wide arms. Those of you who come to my class know that. Wide arms, or even arms behind. And then press the earth away under the feet. Come back tall if you wouldn't mind meeting me with your arms behind you. Laced up. Place the feet, fire up those legs, strong in the core. Bend the knees, send the heart up. Exhale for a forward fold. For some, you may need a lot of bend in the elbows. For some, the elbows can be straight. And for some, the arms might loft up a bit. This is massively tasty. But, please find the shape that works for you. This forward fold with a bind behind your head. This is one place where you're allowed to get yourself into a bind. Okay, land your hands on your low back, find that chair pose again. Okay, and then go ahead and sweep those arms forward and up, and exhale, come on back home. So what we're gonna do is heel toe the feet a little bit wide. Classic frog pose is gonna show up here. Come on into the frog, into the pond. We're in the forest here. So the dynamic of frog pose, let me step this way for you, is that the elbows press to the knees, and it's not a loosey-goosey shape. There's a press here and a press here. And so the effort of the elbows and the effort of the knees and legs and arms and core is sort of an isometric into each other. And what happens when we do that, we get pretty strong. We can stay here for a bit. We could put blocks under our bottoms. We could play with different kinds of balancing postures if we like, by possibly sneaking the knees at the back of the arms. Got my gaze here at the front of my movable feast. And I start to press the feet off the earth by massively engaging the core. Not to mention the whole body. But for me, there's a good measure of santosha here. And it's not available to all bodies. And it did take me an awfully long time to find that posture. But it's really fun too. Here we're going to stand tall. Find postures that are challenging and then meet up with them and find the best that you can, all right? So we are going to slowly come back down. I'm going to be glad to show you some restorative postures here. So I'm going to come back to the frog. That's my way to come down. And then eventually walk my hands behind me, and we will end up with that wide leg shape again. How convenient is that? This is my block today. Okay. All right, a little bend in the knees. So this is sort of like a marker pose. I like the idea that we meet up with one or two of the postures that we started with to try to figure out how we're feeling now. All right, so please close your eyes and just allow, again, always, for the shape to find you. So let your body be the guide, not so much the mind, or the ego. Let me start to let the breath normalize a bit. So here we are again in this wide leg forward fold. Rather than standing, we're on our bottoms. We're gonna halfway lift, just like what we do on the floor, yeah? And again, this time send the gaze over to the right. And just curious to know if maybe the warmth and the movement of your body has increased the range.
I like to walk beyond the leg and send the gaze behind me, but your choice is to stay right here. Okay, at the same time, this hip is pressing a little bit extra into the earth. And then the exhale is the thing that brings me back to center. Well, at this point, I can't wait to check out the other side, right? So my gaze is toward the toes. And then I just see what I have. Can I go a little extra measure? Can I use the deepest exhalation ever? And then come on back. Cool, let's just check out butterfly pose quickly here. Okay. Let's try the yin version. So the yang version has the legs pretty close in. The yin version makes more of a diamond shape. And you will notice a significant difference in this experience with your feet more forward of you. Again, blocks under the thighs if you happen to have them. So let your breath and your stillness and gravity take over here. Not a bad idea to close the eyes. And it's a surrender rather than an effort at this point. The yin postures are generally held for anywhere from 3 to 5 to 6 to, whatever minutes, and much different than our vinyasa experience that we just had. So let's just find 3 more breaths. And on that third exhalation, could you really, really press out every single bit of that breath as you raise yourself back up? Then use your hands to support your knees. And we're going to come around long ways on our mats now. Low little insects. And have your blocks nearby in case you'd like to have them. But let's start. Classic MJ vibe is to find seated cat-cow that increases its range over time. One last little use of the core. In-breath brings us up. And exhale down until eventually we're super low. And since we didn't really address too much core just yet, I thought it might be fun to do a finish up with some, a little bit different. But so that means I'm going to take my time getting down here. Okay. Once there, what the heck? Lengthen the legs, lengthen the arms. Okie dokie. Let's go ahead and bend those knees, place them pretty close to your bottom. And I'm going to make a little basket of fingers behind my head. So the elbows will stay wide, alrighty? And I'm never going to see them. And so it's a different set of abdominal muscles that are in use. Sometimes we see this, and that's okay. But as we exhale and lift the shoulders up, the range may not be quite as high, but we're really getting from the downstairs to the upstairs of all the abs, front side of the body. So we exhale, come up. We inhale, come on down. We're going to go 6 more. Slow is the way to go. I love a fast class, but for our purposes today, we're moving kind of slow. Nice. Come on back up. And then down. I think this is almost 6. Okay, here's the fun part. Going to exhale up, release the arms long, okay?
my shoulders are floating effortlessly off the earth. And all I'm going to do is, I don't know what these are called, but now we're in the side body. Okay. If for some reason it's too much for you to hold your head like this, too bad. No, I'm just kidding. You could place a hand under your head if you wish to. Just take a little, we'll take a little break back there. But ultimately, what we're talking about is back to those layers of spinal muscles. Yes, we're still moving here. From the inside all the way out. Not just the front, but the back and the sides as well. Okay. Awesome. All right, now go ahead and let the shoulders come down, the arms wide. Let's lift those legs up high. All righty. For some, it's really helpful to make a pile of hands under the hips. You could try that out if you want to. In fact, why don't we all just do that if it's comfortable for you? First, let's start by pointing and flexing the toes. Okay. And then what it's going to do is it's a kind of a bicycle without arms, alrighty? So we start out kind of slow, maybe slow range, low, slow. But then we find that we'd like to maybe for those ranges to be sort of bigger, completely up to you. The other up to you part is, do I feel like I'd like to lift the shoulders up too? Lifting the shoulders up does not necessarily mean to smash your chin down to your chest. Keep your chin up nice and high. So really, really correspond breath and movement your whole life. Okay. For some, it's going to be way more easy to bend the knees. Okay, go for that. We've probably got about 8 more of these, on each side. So whatever your vibe is, or whatever your groove is today. Nice. And 5. And 3. And 4. And 2. And 1. Your choice, legs high, shoulders down, head down. Or bend the knees and send the feet to the floor. At this point, remove the hands under your hips. We'll find bridge pose here. So me, I kind of like to sneak the feet pretty close to the bottom where I can kind of, make a little V with my fingers. But it's just another way of saying I'd like the shin bone to be perpendicular to the floor. Okay? Suction cup the feet to the earth as usual. Pretend that you're holding something between the legs and then start to press the hips up. So when I get to the point where the top of the spine is off the earth, I slide the shoulder blades down behind me. And maybe I'm bending the elbows and getting a little more leverage for that lift. Primarily what we're looking at is to fire up the back of the legs. Really up to the waistline, actually. Not a bad view here. Okay. So pretend that we're here for about a half an hour. Get really strong. And then get the heels off the floor. Notice which muscles kind of shifted around back there. Okay, then put the heels back down. And see if you can lift up the toes. It's a little bit different. All right, but for me, what works best is to come off the heels entirely, reach the arms overhead, and slinky the spine back down to the earth. Okay, once your bottom is down, you're going to immediately want to hug your legs in. Take some nice big deep breaths. I'm going to send my gaze toward you and then roll all the way over toward you. Could be I'm going to want to block in the backyard here so that as I reach the top arm over, that arm has something nice to land onto. Then I'm going to make sure that my gaze goes in that direction too. Okay. Now for those who would like a little extra QL action, take the heel of your the downstairs arm and press into the hip that's up there. And take one more nice big breath in, guys. Let go of whatever's happening. And return the back arm forward. And then use your arms to help you get back to center. Okay. Switching sides. Hug in. Roll to the opposite side of me. And then swing that arm toward me again. And your gaze is right at me this time. Close your eyes. Relinquish effort. This is a really tasty place to feel gravity in your bones. Again, imagining that we've been here for about 30 minutes, just in this shape. Use an exhalation to roll back over to that side, and to use the arms to bring you back to center. Go ahead, lengthen those legs out. Alrighty. Please reach your arms overhead. Reach the body long. I'm going to come seated and guide you briefly through a little shavasana. So you'll find your way to a very restful posture. One that involves props, blanket rolls, blocked under hands with arms slightly wide, a blanket over you, you know, whatever feels like the just right thing for your body to rest for just a little bit. And this little guided tour that I'm going to take you on is one of my favorites. It is an MJ exclusive. All right. So please close your eyes. And again, invite gravity's hold and invitation into all the bones and all the connective tissue and all the muscles. Softening. Soften often. All right. Meet up with the breath and let it be soft and wide and spacious. And if we're thinking of spacious, as you close your eyes, imagining that you're floating effortlessly on the most beautiful raft you could possibly imagine, on the most beautiful body of water ever, anywhere. Luminescent in color, perfectly temperatured, smooth as silk, floating on your beautiful raft on this body of water. Okay, so the place and the breath are spacious and wide and free. And what you will notice is a periphery of concentric ripples of circles off of your raft. These concentric circles that radiate off of your raft all around you on this beautiful iridescent, luminescent body of water. And you're curious as to what is the source of this radiant pulsing. And you realize it's the beat of your heart. So as you're on your raft and you're floating in this beautiful place, and you see these radiant concentric rings of water off of your body, well, in some way you realize who you are. And so we'll just lie here for another minute.
And each breath is a little bit longer, not necessarily deeper, just longer. You are free to stay in this exact posture for as long as you wish to. Or if it's time for you to come back to this time and space, very gently start to reach your arms and legs far away from each other. Breathing again a little deeper, and as you exhale, you'll roll onto your right side into a little curl. And take the block or the pillow that's nearby to support your head so that your arms are free to give you a hug. And if you're on your right side, you're going to use your left hand to press to the earth to come up to a seat with something under your bottom to sit on, with eyes closed, still hugging yourself. Because Santosha has arrived, contentment has arrived. It's been there all along. It always is. It always is. Isn't that so cool? All right. And then the hands are going to shift positions to make a little shape in front of your heart space, and you're going to breathe really deeply. And exhale a sigh. Friends, let's one more time. Thanks so much for being here. Breathe very deeply in. Exhale a sigh. And take a bow. Namaste, yogis. Thank you so much. Okie dokie.